Well, I'd say first of all that certainly my staff worked extraordinarily hard from the time that we were together through the summer, into camp, into the season, to do the very best coaching job that we all could as a group. None of us like the result we're sitting in here today, but it certainly isn't from a lack of work or a lack of competence on the point of my staff at all. As I stand here today, I haven't even had discussions with any of my assistants. My plan is certainly for the group to be back, and as we move forward, I don't know any other opportunities. When you're an assistant, sometimes opportunities come up, and like Tony Granato last year, and people move on. So we'll look at all that as we move through the next month. I haven't had the chance to talk to him about anything specific to that.
Jeff, obviously disappointing season. Kenny was just talking about it. From your standpoint, again, a lot of players took a step back production-wise. They regressed. What can you do as a coach next season to maximize their abilities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at the roster, I think there's certainly some guys that took steps backwards, some guys that I don't know that I agree took steps backwards, and some guys that had great years. My job is to maximize our team to the very best of my ability, and the best way to do this is to maximize every individual player the best you can. Now, there's some factors in that. Ice time's a big factor, so opportunities. So certain guys might not have had the opportunity they've had in the past, whether it's because of my decisions, whether it's because of performance early and opportunity diminished. It's hard to produce if you're not getting the same ice time. I guess I don't want to necessarily get into specific players, but as I said, I think there's certain guys. I'll use Tats and Nike for example. I thought both those guys, when you look at their year in totality, had really good years. I have talked earlier in the year about the fact that when Nike came up to the Red Wings, he scored at a rate that he hadn't scored at before in the American League or in college hockey. And it doesn't mean that he won't score at that rate again. I just don't think we can just simply judge him on his ability to score goals. I think he had the second or third most points he's had in the NHL. He does a lot more than just score goals. So, Tats was cold early, but it wasn't from a lack of getting chances. It's sometimes as a goal scorer, you're going to go through stretches where they don't go in. And for me, he went through stretches where it didn't go in. But when you're no different than a hitter, sometimes it goes through stretches where you just don't hit the ball. In totality in the year, I think Tats had 25 goals. That must be his second most in his career. So I think as a group, we have to make sure as a staff that we're getting the very most out of every player. I guess with that said, the very most within the context of the ice time that's available. And not everybody's going to have career years. It's not the way it works. The guys that earn the most ice time generally are the ones that are going to have the real good years.
Is it safe to say, though, that going forward, not that he's going to not try, but you need somebody to step up and be the best player on the team other than Zetterberg?
Well, I talked about this last season. Ultimately, I think Zetterberg was an elite player again this year, and he's got to be one of the best winners in his generation that he's played here in the NHL. I'll use the word two-way player, but really all a two-way player is a winner, a guy who wins puck battles, a guy who keeps the puck out of your net, and a guy who produces offense for you. Doesn't cheat for offense, does it the way that it takes to win. There's lots of guys in this league that score but don't win. He wins. He's been an elite player for a long time. Without question, we need guys to continue to take steps towards being becoming elite players in order to be the hockey team we want to be. The more guys that become elite, the better chance we have to win at the highest level. The less guys that become elite, the harder it is. Now, within that, our coaching staff's job is to make sure that we do everything possible to maximize our guys. And as I said earlier, that's something that we're going to make sure that we continue to work towards, find ways to be better at that this summer, find ways to be better at that through the course of the season. I think, I believe Ken talked about everybody being a little bit better. Boy, we better all look in the mirror and find a way to be a little bit better. That's our coaching staff, that's our players, that's our training staff, that's everybody. This is on our watch. None of us like sitting here today having this press conference. We'd like to be playing tomorrow. And we all have our fingerprints on us, so we got to all go to work and all look in the mirror and make sure how can we be better.
Coach, you mentioned it's a little difficult going through the year at times, obviously, and you've had 2 years in which the team's been disappointing. You're a young coach, first 2 years in the NHL. Do you have any concerns at all about your ability to impact this team going forward?
No, I don't have any concerns about my ability to get the most out of our guys and for the message to be continue to be heard. I think I think our character was tested as much as it can be tested over the last month. I think in tough times is when character shows the most, and I think we fought to the end to a greater degree than other teams that were out of it, to be honest with you. So I think there's no question that moving forward here, I believe in the impact as our coaching staff and that myself can have on this team. And together we got to find a way to be a little bit better. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Along those lines, what went into your decision to take that position and coach the U.S. at the Worlds?
Well, again, I think obviously we'd all like to be playing tomorrow. Yeah, we're not. I think it's an unbelievable honor to represent your country, and so when I was asked to do it, my first instinct was to certainly say yes because of the fact that I've had a chance to represent my country in a couple other tournaments, and it's a great thing. Beyond that, I also think it's a heck of a coaching and learning experience. I mean, I've looked at coaching my whole life. I hope there's not one day that I haven't tried to get better and that I haven't tried to learn and improve. And one of the ways to do that is to be in different environments and learn from other staff members. And this gives me a chance to be around people that I'm not around every day and hopefully get that little bit better that we all want to be.
Jeff, curious if, in this, I have no idea what your answer is going to be to this one.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah. With the streak coming to an end, the playoff streak, does that alleviate any pressure at all? Can you maybe fresh start it, new arena, or how do you handle that approach?
I mean, I think with the new rink, with the closing of the Joe and the opening Little Caesars Arena, I think, the streak is over. That's a fact. I think certainly if there's something to be said for a fresh start. I think there's some reality to that. I think regardless, there's lots of, when you come to the Detroit Red Wings as a coach or a player, you're coming recognizing and embracing the pressure that comes with playing here and coaching here, because that means that you have a passionate fan base that expects to win, and I think that's a positive thing. I think that's why we are here. It's certainly those of us that chose to be here is why we're here, and I can tell you that we embrace that pressure and we embrace that expectation level. I don't know that the streak added pressure per se. I can't say it did or didn't. What I know is every single year we put lots of pressure on ourselves to make sure that we're one of those 16 teams competing for the Stanley Cup. And we're bitterly disappointed we're not today.
Jeff, Ken Holland cited your resume of winning at every level, extensively for why he believes in you. So this year, you guys didn't win. Some people say you learn more from adversity than success. What do you think you learned the most from this season?
Well, I think this will be a little bit hard maybe for some of you to understand just because you're not in the trenches with us every day, but there was a certain style in which this team has won over a period of time, and it complemented the players that were here. And honestly, it was a style that I played similar when I was in Grand Rapids, and I think not major differences, but we've made some minor changes to that, how we're going to play to be successful. I think as a group, you look at your group and say, how can you best maximize? What playing style can we best maximize this? And we made some tweaks going into the year, and I think that takes time to take hold. And I thought by the end of the season, a lot of those things we had gotten better at. And I think that gives me lots of confidence moving forward that those lessons that I learned, that we all learned during the season on how can we maximize this group. Not the group that played 10 years ago, not the group that played 2 years ago, but this group. How can we maximize that? I think we learned as we went through the season different things that potentially we can do to help our group be. I think the goal always is for the sum to be greater than the parts for any team. And I think we took steps in that direction. I think as an individual, I think certainly you learn lots when you go through tough times. I think I hope I've learned every day I've been coaching them.
When you lose at any level, even like little kids sports, people start pointing fingers. I know when Yurko left here, he made comments saying that the style in Chicago was much easier to play and more successful, and it helps when you have Taves and Kane around you. But what's it like in that room? Is that just one voice? Is there dissent? What's the relationship you've had with the players when losing has made you guys look at each other in the face and in the eye?
Well, I think one of the things certainly that, just to comment on the first part, is I think when you don't win enough or when you lose, it's easy to play the blame game. And we've talked about this a couple points through the course of the season. And I can blame the players, and the players can blame me, and the players can blame each other, and management can blame me, I can blame management. We can all blame each other, and we get nowhere. Let's find ways to be better. And let's also understand that every single one of us has our fingerprints on this success or not success. So I think it's something that we fight to make sure that, for lack of a better word, I've got a phrase: bitching equals losing, and I don't care if that's in any organization you're a part of, and so it's certainly true here. I think first of all, I didn't hear Thomas Yurko say that. I didn't actually read the comments, so it's hard for me to say what context that was. As you guys know, sometimes there's a greater context to it all. I think that what I talked about a second ago, I don't know that you'll ever have 100% of everybody saying, we totally agree, but I think the majority of our players have real buy-in of what it's going to take for this team to be successful. And I think that's why we were able to continue to be ultra competitive till the end, after some trades, after some injuries, after the lineup had changed drastically, because of the fact that there's a ton of buy-in of the type of approach we're going to have to take to be successful. And it's not about not being able to make a play. It's not about not having any offensive freedom. It's about maximizing the group. And I really believe that is why we continue to play good hockey.